Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sempa Jole from Group 11, handling international programming management. We're having a question regarding using examples, discuss the lessons learned from COVID-19 pandemic for firms that engage in global value chains. And part B is to identify and discuss the range of strategies and options that can be designed and implemented by organizations to survive dismiss now and in the future of similar and even much worse pandemics. As everyone knows that COVID-19 tackled the world and then everything went bad. So in global value chains, we face the same challenges. When you look at global value chain, refer to international production sharing, a phenomenon where production is broken into activities and tasks carried out in different countries. They can be thought of a large-scale extension of division of labor dating back to Adam Smith's time. Global value chains cuts across border networks that bring products or service from the conception to market. That is turning a product from conception ideas to into the market, into the final product. This occurs whereby values are being added into the product at different stages. That's why we call, or that's what we call global value chains. In other words, this also happens into digital platforms whereby they are changing participants in the global value chains. This gives opportunities for developing economies and industries within medium scale and large scale enterprises. Also, global value chains generate well-paying jobs, boost inclusive growth, to support participation. Policymakers need to tackle obstacles to increasing education attainment. There are also risks in the global value chains, including geopolitical, environmental, pandemic risks like COVID-19 as today. When you look at the strategies which you have to employ in which you have to employ and the lessons which are being learned, the lessons which are being learned include the multi-sourcing options. Multi-sourcing is also known as multi-sourcing. Is an outsourcing approach in which products or services are contracted to various suppliers needed to conduct a business instead of using a single traditional sourcing. When I talk about multiple sourcing, this is where different suppliers bring in items instead of using a single supplier. As we have seen COVID-19 tackling the world, having a single supplier is at a high risk because when there is a logistical subtraction or production delays in one supplier, that will make your product line to delay because of a single supplier. So in this, having multiple supplier helps that when one supplier fails, you get a backup in another one. Another lessons learned is geographical diversity expansion. Geographical diversity is one of the cornerstones of diverse workforce invested by Secretary General. The strategy focuses on two principal areas under which overarching concept of greater geographical diversity. One is equitable geographical representation and two, greater regional group diversity. Diversity helps that you don't incur disruption in logistics within one region. Other lessons learned is about new supply technology investment. New supply chain technology can be defined as a digital equipment that supports the organization and efficiency of the supply chain. Here we can look at 99 of the supply chain decision makers companies are investing more in supply chain technology and services to address the impacts of COVID-19 or any other pandemic which might occur in future. So we believe that putting more capital investment in supply chain technology helps that we put or we get more technological advances which can help to incur risks or mitigate risks which can help us to disrupt the logistics within the organizations. When I look at another lessons learned is supply chain resistance. Supply chain resistance, we look at the strategic resistance, means thinking holistically about the needs of the organization, from experimenting the new opportunities that hinge of the operation of strengthening the speed, responsiveness, and agility at the core. Examples include strategies like asset-like solutions, prioritize flexibility, great diversity, and inventory management. We have a sample like 94% of the supply chain decision makers said that supply chain resistance is important. On the same note, 66% of the supply chain decision makers advocated fund supply chain resistance. In this, I mean that the 66% they put capital and funds such that they increase flexibility, agility within the supply chain to avoid disruption within the supply chain. And the 99 support the decision of supply chain resistance. Let me stop there and then my colleague continue from there. Thank you.
Thank Continuing from where my colleagues stopped, France is the table. The next point is cross-divisional collaboration improvements. So here there is need for cross-border collaboration movement. In that it means that there should be a collaboration what happens between employees from various functions or departments working together for the common goal. For example, when we look at the JBIL reacting to COVID-19 outbreak required a huge mobilization across our teams. As a company, different divisions work alongside each other to constantly collaborate and communicate to meet the desired goals and objectives of an organization. Next, besides that, there is need for execution to predictively supply chain risks analysis. What I meant is there should be future prediction of disruption and recommendations mitigating activities based on BCPs and financial impact on risk avoidance scenarios through all-based logistics and advanced analysis. For example, there is 17% of the supply chain decision makers rated their predictive supply chain as excellent during COVID-19. Besides that, there is a lesson which is finding a manufacturing partner. Basically, there is a saying that you cannot handle work alone. So, in production, the manufacturing of business partners in the third party who are directly involved with the creation and management of company business operations and productivity. For example, 53% of the supply chain decision makers say they are looking to manufacturing partners in light of COVID-19 pandemics. Besides that, there is a little in the third of survey participants say that they would rather skip a partnership altogether and bring their manufacturing in-house. This provides them with full control of operations and decision making of the company. For example, teamwork basically is the most important thing, because when you bring third parties to help you handle certain things, it helps the production process. Far from this, there is need to achieve political integration and collaboration. For in reference to COVID-19, the political factors, including the role of the government and current political framework in the country, are necessary. It is to be noted that the smooth execution of business is also dependent on the kind of government interventions that are made towards the organizations. The ongoing invasion, for example, the ongoing invasion of Ukraine, which has led to human, social, and economic impact across countries and sectors, adds another layer of conservations in this world. Besides that, embracing transshipment. This practice is known as, transshipment generally refers to the process where containers are transferred from one vessel to another for easy movement and delivery of goods and services. For example, during COVID-19 lockdown, with countries closing borders, we noted that so many goods and services were transferred, moved from, for example, from sea to road, granting the opportunity to transfer goods from one vessel to another for easy movement because of the COVID-19 pandemic. So with this, let me give it to another person to.
I'm continuing the discussion, and we are looking at strategy options that can be designed and implemented by organizations in the wake of, in the aftermath of COVID-19, and the future strategies to make sure that when such uncertainty occurs, they are able to withstand it. We are looking at, in a McKinsey survey of supply chain executives conducted in May 2020, an overwhelming 93% reported that they plan to take steps to make their supply chains more resilient, including building in redundancy across supplies, nearshoring, reducing the number of unique parts, and regionalizing their supply chains. One of the strategies is strengthening supply chain risk management and improve end-to-end transparency. Global manufacturing has only just begun to adopt a range of technologies such as analytics and artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, advanced robotics, and digital platforms. Companies now have access to new solutions for running scenarios, assessing trade-offs, improving transparency, accelerating responses, and even changing the economics of production. Most companies are still in the early stages of their efforts to connect the entire value chain with a seamless flow of data. Digital can deliver major benefits to efficiency and transparency that are yet to be fully realized. Companies can also work with their Tier 1 suppliers to create transparency. Tier 1, we are looking at the producers of raw materials to make sure that they give as accurate information as possible so that companies can forecast and plan their inventories properly, so that in case of any disaster, they are able to counter it. We are looking at contingency plans to minimize exposure to shocks. Contingency plans or targeted measures taken before an event occurs can mitigate the impact of a shock or speed time to recovery. As more physical assets are digitized, for example, companies will need to step up investment in cybersecurity tools and teams. One of the most important steps is building more redundancy into supply networks. Relying on a single source for critical components or raw materials can be a vulnerability. In fact, even if a company relies on multiple suppliers, they may be concentrated in the same place. Taking the time to identify, pre-qualify, and onboard backup vendors come at a cost, but can provide much needed capacity if a risk strikes. We are talking about not relying on one source. You have to qualify as many potential suppliers as possible, so that when disruption occurs at one point of production, you still have other suppliers on board who can supply you. For instance, you saw in Turkey what happened if the earthquake. Assuming you had all your suppliers in Turkey and they were affected by the earthquake, what happens? You find that you cannot supply and meet the market demand. So the pre-qualifying multiple suppliers is very key, not only for the case of pandemics, but also for any eventuality which cannot be foreseen. We are looking at agility, quick response ability. We companies, when COVID struck and lockdowns were put in place, companies which used to rely on just in time found themselves in a very tricky situation. It affected global value chains where borders were closed, and if you had no stock, which means your business either closed or you found very many challenges, even sometimes legal suits because of failure to deliver. So we are also looking at focusing on just in case, to have buffer stock so that when any eventuality occurs, you at least have something which can run the company or meet the customer's demands for a certain time. So that is what we call, in most cases, we call it Plan B. So companies must have Plan B and not just rely on one just in time. When disaster strikes, companies have to be lesser focused on cash management, but those at the top of a value chain also have a vested interest in preserving the supply networks on which they depend. In the aftermath of the global financial crisis, some companies accelerated payments or guaranteed bank loans to give key vendors a lifeline. We are also looking at stronger value chains, not reshoring, are needed after the COVID-19 shock. We are talking about companies after the COVID-19. We're looking at some countries started reshoring, where if they had their production points in other countries, they started to bring them back to their home countries to make sure that they don't suffer from any eventuality or the supply disruption. But this strategy is not sustainable because when we look at comparative advantage of countries which are within the global value chain, it is more profitable and flexible compared to companies resorting to reshoring, which of course can also cause a lot of unemployment in developing countries who actually don't have capacity and financial muscle to beef up and boost their production. We also have to look at to rate our sources for risk or multi-sourcing. Data analysts can also help you develop more resilient sourcing strategies. For instance, Stanley Black and Decker, based in New Britain, analyzes risks its suppliers face due to COVID infections or various other challenges. Those risks point to potential supply chain disruptions. This enables quickly narrowing down the list of higher risk suppliers that can be evaluated much more carefully to see if their production rates have been hit. If supply from one vendor starts to look uncertain, the company can shift more order volume to a different supplier. This is all to make sure that the customer or the end user does not suffer the supply chain disruption. We are also looking at moving your manufacturing nearer. That is called nearshoring. Supply chain disruptions have dramatically driven up freight rates and lengthened transit times. A container shipment from Asia to the United States that would have cost less than $2,000 a few years ago cost as much as $20,000 in 2021, according to Bloomberg.com. And capacity shortages and port congestions have added weeks to the crossing. So we are looking at certain services being brought closer, so that in case of any strike, we are able to respond quickly.